Booyah Navy Recruiting Command. NCC Totome here for episode 5 of Uncharted Waters with the one, the only, Admiral James Waters. The gentleman to my far left needs no introduction. He goes by many names. El Jefe, Boss of Bosses, Caesar, Commander, Navy Education Training Command, Admiral Jeffrey Czerewko.
Well done.
Sir?
Yeah, well done.
Thank you so much for being
Uncharted
here.
Waters.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, they put to words what I've been thinking since I met you.
Yeah, that's right.
Every conversation is uncharted territory.
Yeah, I don't know where he's going.
Yeah,
Nor
it's
does
not
he.
true.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. Thanks, Chief. I appreciate the intro. And for Recruiting Nation, this is the first episode with somebody other than Chief Totome and myself, but I thought it was really important.
Yeah, one of these is not dressed like the other. So.
Because aviators is just mo cool. Is that
No,
what
it's
it is?
pajamas. They're easy.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
they're easy. Yeah, and so you've been in the fight with force development and Recruiting Nation being part of that for longer than I have. So I thought it'd be really good for Recruiting Nation to get a little perspective from you.
Sure.
If we could start maybe with, we know each other well, and so some of these questions are really meant.
We already
for them.
know the answers.
We already know the answers.
Yeah.
But just give the Recruiting Nation a very short perspective on the scope of what Naval Education and Training Command is. We got a picture of it at the offsite we just finished.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's probably worth the precursor story to show you the level of knowledge I was at when I showed up and took over June 8th of last year. So I was, like every flag, wondering where you're going for your next job. And found out I made 2-star, which was great, so it's maybe February of 23. And then the next question is, so where am I going? And Admiral Caudle called me and didn't say anything. I'm like, ooh, all right, that's interesting. But I'm driving home along Ocean View Avenue between Norfolk and Little Creek, NAS Norfolk, and my phone dings, right? And it is a retired somebody who should not be named and said, hey, is the bar stocked in quarters A? And well, first, I don't drink.
Are you telling the truth?
To excess. And I pulled over, of course, because that's how you're supposed to do it, and undid my safety belts and safed my ejection seat. Now I was driving my car, and I said, of course the bar is always stocked. Where's quarters A? And he said, it's NETC. And I go, what's NETC and where is that? Am I moving to Chicago?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you thought NSTIC.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, it's Pensacola, man. You're going to be the Chief of Naval Education and Training. I'm like, awesome.
Nice.
And then I went home and Googled that's before I talked to my wife, So
because she was going to have questions.
she was
of course.
just a few, right?
Yeah.
As a South Jersey shore beach girl, I figured we were probably getting to Pensacola. So I tell that humorous but very, very true story to say I didn't know anything about naval education and training, which probably helped me more than it hurt me. And so Naval Education and Training Command is the biggest shore command in the United States Navy. Day over day, we have approximately 70,000 people, about 40,000 students, apprentices, sessions, journeymen, masters, so all the way from E1 to about 08 in the domain as students. And 29,000 strong workforce of government civilians and uniform, and then a heavy load of contractors as well. So I don't really count those in there. And day over day, or year over year total, we hit about 150,000 Navy personnel are enrolled.
Wow.
So it's a big command, and it's got about $2 billion in infrastructure as well, which is what we talked about for the last 2 days at our offsite. Right. So the bottom line, if you are a human being with a path to citizenship at the farthest left of the equation, or a citizen of the United States has an idea of service, I am held accountable for the processes and the people that run these processes that take that idea, ideally, to CNO after a 40-year career, Master Chief after a 33-year career, or 3, 4, 5-year orders, and have a successful tour human being with skills where they've served the nation and now can serve the nation in another capacity.
Yeah.
So street to fleet, and
Yeah.
that's what it is. So
Yeah,
it's
ginormous.
It's a big domain.
Yeah,
and,
so
and I didn't know any of
recruiting,
this.
boot camp, and then all the schoolhouses make
Yeah.
up that domain.
Yeah, so recruiting, boot camp, all officer sessions, all the leadership training, much of the in-stride training, all the A schools, C schools, JROTC as well, 81,000 strong.
Yep.
So I didn't add those to that number. Technically, it'd be 150,000 or so.
Yeah.
And then team training, fleet training, all of it.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, it's ginormous.
Yeah. So I'm I'm an aviator, and I've been a fleet guy, but I've never been a NETC or force management person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had an empty bucket.
So as you were coming in, you were, learning about the scope and scale of NETC. When it became clear that, recruiting falls within that domain.
It wasn't on Google.
Yeah,
Google
yeah.
did not say that Navy Recruiting Command was part of NETC because
Yeah.
it was dated.
Yeah.
The source I went and looked at, NRC came under NETC a few years ago.
Yeah, it's probably in the
17, 18,
time frame.
yeah.
Yeah, and so as you grew in that understanding and knew that recruiting was behind in 23, right, and tracking the missed mission for the first time since 1998. What was going through your head? What were you thinking about with respect to how to approach, leading that command and guiding it, because it's a flag-led command?
Yes.
What was in your head on the things that were important to you to communicate to recruiting command?
Well, one, you have to understand that is there an issue or is there not an issue? And when I found out I was responsible for the recruiting command and the flag there answered to me, my next question was, how's recruiting doing, right? And then I realized, okay,
Not good. at
not
that
well,
point.
right? And so in my past 4 or 5 jobs, I have been inserted into organizations where we need to improve performance. I suspect there's a method behind the madness. Sometimes maybe it's blind luck. People have called me very curious, probably not as a compliment. Do a lot of digging. And so I looked at the current state, and when the current state was well defined, right, back in probably June 11th of 2023, and saw some challenges. We weren't going to make mission. We were predicting it was going to go poorly, and I do have some experience in complex organizations that are geographically dispersed. Naval Aviation, so I was the chief of staff there, right? It's the biggest TICOM, and we were ailing. Naval Aviation had been ailing for so long we didn't know we were ailing anymore. And what I found was an eerie resemblance to the performance that we had in aviation, which has plenty of warts and it's not all solved. But from a root cause perspective, I was seeing very similar derived root causes. Early on, the biggest challenge for me was orienting and learning the language.
Yeah.
Right? And doing that, and I was starting to ask the questions. I asked a ton of questions in the office right over there. That's why there's a big whiteboard. And bringing in people and just saying, okay, let me trace this drop of water through the steam cycle.
Yeah.
Right? And you and I have talked about that a lot, Jim. And I started to see the eerie parallels, right? You can't expect an organization to perform as designed if it's not resourced as it's designed.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a challenge for leadership at times. You never want to call out your people and say, I got a bad team, especially if you don't have a bad team. And so if I don't man you correctly, if I don't give you the money you need, you as a leader are going to look at your team and go, I've got a great team. They're managing the chaos. They're managing sparse resources. I'm going to give them an A. And no one can debate that. But if you've got a system of systems, an organization of organizations, if everybody's an A, we don't know where our problems are.
Right.
And so I do have an analytic decision science bent. Jim, we didn't know each other at the Naval Academy, but if you did, I was the guy you didn't want to hang around with. I created a sport called Hall Luge with a longboard, a leather flying helmet, and a silk scarf, and got in a lot of trouble for that. I was the guy that pissed you off. So the fact that I say things like decision science and analytic bent, most people who know me are laughing and probably losing hope in the Navy. But I am curious, and I got better.
Yeah.
And I started to understand that I am not data-driven.
Yeah.
I am data-informed. And I, we can share some thoughts about that at a future state or something. But bottom line is, I think we have data on how we're doing. We do.
We have a ton.
Yeah.
We have a ton of
So did
data.
aviation.
Yeah.
And we never did anything with it.
Yeah.
But man, we collected the hell out of it. And the big thing was, okay, we've got data. What's it showing us?
Exactly.
And then the big challenge is there's two perspectives, in my opinion, Jim. There is a drive risk to zero mindset and accept appropriate risk mindset. And I think those are opposite sides. There are times where you and I in our operational careers have had to drive risk to zero.
Yep.
And we couldn't get there, but now we knew it. There are other times, I'm an aviator, I've probably made thousands of risk-based decisions every flight. Pull up, push over, roll left, roll right, go fast, go slow, duck, pull. In some organizations, being able to take appropriate risk is the biggest challenge to improvement. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest challenge is then persuading your idea people to throw their idea out and then take a shot and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that first step is a huge one.
Yeah.
And there's concern, worry by the team that, oh my gosh, we're going to get it wrong. What's the boss going to think?
Yeah. So when you mentioned data informed, and just to kind of pull the string a little bit on that, you implemented the recruiting commander's update brief when you took command or at some point shortly thereafter.
Yep.
And really kind of focused in on the idea of variance, which I think derived out of your experience with naval aviation.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about your thinking there?
Yeah. So variance, right? What does that mean? So it means variability, right? And the biggest challenge is understanding how the individual like components are performing next to each other. Because I am a lazy person. I really am. When I was in various leadership roles, I spent a lot of my time calling my buds and saying, hey, dude, I got this problem. How'd you solve it?
Right.
And I learned and I learned and I learned. Sometimes I didn't know who to call.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I called the wrong person, a really crappy squadron, right, or something. But if you can plot performance relatively on a naturally agreed upon metric, whatever that is, here's what I've found. High performers continue to perform high because now they know they're good. Low performers may get disheartened or all of a sudden be tipped and cued into where to look for, hey, is this a best practice? Right. The reason I did that was I believe that, being personally lazy, but man, if I know who's doing it right, it's a self-correcting organization at that point based on a sense of competition, right? I believe human beings would like to win. I believe that if we're going to win, we want our team to win.
Yeah,
we're social,
definitely.
Right? And we want to be recognized for our contributions to that win, right? And so I think self-assessing and self-correcting, it's neat to say, Jim, go look at yourself and tell me how you're doing. And you may not know why I care or what I'm looking at. But if you said, Caesar, let's look at ourselves and see how we're doing on push-ups, we would plot mine, we would plot yours, I'm sorry. Let me get that. No, but now I go, okay, well, Jim knows how to do this now. I'm going to talk to Jim because I want to get better at this. No, by the way, Jim, I'm coming for you.
Right.
If you can throw a relative performance plot of everybody, instead of whacking moles or saying, hey, everybody get better, hey, do your job better, I might say, NTAG New England, you're number one in whatever this metric is. What are you doing?
Right.
Or better, NTAG, give me a name. New Orleans says, hey, I stunk here. I called NTAG New England. They told me this. I'm doing it. I'm already seeing an improvement in performance. Now I'm not looking for every mole that I need to whack.
Yeah, it's
They're doing it themselves.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
based on human nature and my assumption that people
Yeah.
like to win.
Yeah, and as you've watched, kind of just to put a bow on this conversation, as you've watched the journey in the time that you've been here from the summer of 23, it's almost a year now.
Yep.
What as you think about what Recruiting Nation has done over that time with improvement and acceleration, what's important for recruiters to know? What would you like to make sure that they know and that they think about?
Well, what rating is this? G? PG-13? Seriously.
Yeah, PG.
Holy shit. Unbelievable. I will tell you, being mindful of providing guidance to a down echelon flag, helping an organization see themselves without driving them around like yellow gear on a flight deck, allowing for initiative. Like, there were no kidding, very sleepless nights for months because a leader can't come in and just start pounding and yelling. I've been on the receiving end of that.
Yeah.
Doing a commander's update brief for somebody we both know.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable because
Yeah.
it stifles innovation and it requires a ton of courage to kind of push back and go, no, this is what I want to try. So what's interesting is to watch the organization wake up, see something, share something, all of a sudden it gets better. There were some unknowns,
Yeah.
right? I was watching closely in February. Not saying a word, but watching closely. I will tell you this, I've been sleeping better than I've slept in the last year, over the last 3 months. And so what I would like Recruiting Nation to know is, holy shit,
Yeah.
like, awesome. Like,
Yeah. The potential was there, and
the turnaround it's bigger. This might be the greatest turnaround. So, well, hopefully CNO and Vice CNO don't watch this.
they might.
So a little bird whispered in my ear. You hear me talk about aviation readiness recovery, and I mean, it had
Yeah.
some ideations and support in there. There's a whisper like, this is bigger than that.
Yeah.
And 341 is considered, the Naval Aviation Readiness metric,
Yeah, the gold
is considered
standard.
the gold standard.
Absolutely.
Right? And oh, by the way, we made a ton of mistakes in there, right? Yeah. So we're not performing flawlessly.
No.
You make a bad decision, I make a bad decision, I say something, but this is bigger than 341.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to be talking about next year is an aviator is going to get out and say, so when I was working on 341, someone's going to say, sit down. Let's talk about Recruiting Nation.
Yeah, let's
You
talk
know what I
about
mean?
40,600.
So, I mean, it's a profound demonstration of the innate talent within an organization to turn itself and accelerate. It is incredible.
In a very difficult job,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, the work of recruiting, just day in and day
Jim,
out.
I'm an extrovert. I couldn't take no.
Yeah.
I want to be one for one on a, hey, let's go do this. No? Okay, come on. What if I do? All right, we're good. If I had to get told no,
100
no
times just
times,
to get one.
I'd be
It's
laying
hard.
in the fetal position under my
Yeah, it's
desk.
hard.
Like,
It's
just
wicked
hard.
hard.
If you can do that, my gosh, it's eye-watering.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's absolutely essential for the health of the Navy. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, CNO told me, Caesar, I have 2 existential threats to the United States Navy. Number 1 is recruiting's performance. Number 2 is shipyard performance. I don't know. It looks like she only has one existential
Yeah.
threat right now.
We're
My
ahead of
biggest
shipyards.
concern, bunch of recruiters are going to get pulled over to the shipyard to show them how to fix this stuff. Not kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually a nightmare every once in a while. Like you're going to go, Caesar, I'm going to go over to NAVC and work on shipyards. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Recruiting Nation is really answering the call, and it is the beginning of the bend in the curve. But it is, it's all based on the other thing that's really important as I think we're wrapping up here is that the work that you did with Recruiting Nation over those months before I was the commander did produce week over week, month over month improvement, and laid the foundation for the very recent, real bend in the curve. That it was all due to recruiters doing the things recruiters do well, sailors doing the things sailors do well.
Unleash the power of a sailor.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to wrap it up.
Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 5 of Uncharted Waters with the one, the only, Admiral James Waters. I'm NCC Totome. Today we had the distinct pleasure of sitting down with Admiral Waters as well as Admiral Czerewko. Navy recruiting isn't just about numbers. It is about national security, ensuring that our borders are protected. Admiral Waters has a distinct job and is entrusted to ensure the fleet is fully manned to always make sure the United States is always protected. Admiral Czerewko now has another tough task at hand. He has to ensure the development and the proficiency of all sailors so they can ensure that they can do the job the right way the first time. These two individuals to be able to sit down with you today speaks volume. We went over recruiting. We went over the landscape of where the Navy is headed. And we spoke a little bit about them personally, so you got to get a little one-on-one about their personal lives. You don't get to get this all across the Navy. So just take the time, take this information in, and again, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 5 of Uncharted Waters. Out.